if you don't take care, one day people's homes will just be washed away, will collapse.
Yeah.
Buildings will come down. And if that, I pray that doesn't happen. But if we don't take care, we're getting there.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
If that happens, we will be in a deep mess, I tell you.
Yesterday, were you alarmed by what you saw, the volumes of water? It rained for a number of hours, though.
Yeah, it did. I mean, of course, we're told that it will rain till late afternoon, and it did.
That's right,
rain for up to late afternoon. I was alarmed. Because places that ordinarily didn't used to flood. I mean, the high street in Accra, front of the Nkrumah Memorial Park, it was flooded. Places like the main road heading towards Legon, the Shashi Airport, Shashi Road was also flooded. And so it tells you increasingly that the issues that we're beginning to have, in places like that is not what we are used to.
That's right.
A lot more places are getting flooded and getting affected.
Yeah.
And it's also because of we recently finished Tour du Ghana. We're talking about the environment and
That's right.
everything else. Are people planting enough trees as they should? Are people clearing their gutters as they should?
Really
Are people keeping natural spaces? Everybody is either concreting or paving or tiling or something. So water hits it, it can't seep into the earth. It has to run off and go somewhere else. And where does it go? If everybody has that, then if we don't take it, one day we'll all be washed into the Gulf of Guinea. So we need to start thinking around those levels and have a very holistic conversation. This is where you want to see the assemblies come into the picture.
That's right.
The local assemblies. I mean, if somebody comes to you to say, I have an acre of land, or I have 70 by 100 or 60 by 70 or whatever parcel of land I have, and I want to develop it and I want to turn it into a residential area, do you get involved in the planning in terms of advising them on what percentage of that land they should leave for greenery? It's important so that we all get it done nicely. Elsewhere in Germany, they have the rain tax for people who leave their a portion of their land for greenery. They get rewarded for it. And for those who don't, you get to pay monies, and those monies some are used to compensate those who have left the greens, because it's supposed to be all of us, but you decided that you don't want to have any of that.
That's a clever initiative to ensure that for those who don't even want to be green, because you don't want to pay money, it forces you to be green. That signal from leadership is there that they actually care about the environment enough to put those kind of decisive policies in plan. I don't know whether we have some kind of... In fact, interestingly, on the Daily Guide this morning, there's a countdown to Green Ghana Day. Well, check it out. It's on the top right-hand corner. Funny enough.
It's going to be in June. I know.
Yeah.
I have the back end. The gentleman who started this whole Green Ghana thing is a friend, Nanaya Osei Dakwa, of the Green Republic. It was a gentleman for whom I postponed my wedding in 2018.
I see.
1 year ahead to go and help plant trees in Yong and Sang in the northern region. 1 week ahead of my wedding. I had to postpone it to go because we've been in this green thing for a long time. He put together the plan. He actually had the National Tree Planting Day. He didn't call it the Green Ghana Day. He called it the National Tree Planting Day. And his concept of the National Tree Planting Day was to have the president down to the last citizen plant at least one tree.
Yeah.
The late Sir John Bless his soul of Forestry Commission was, in support of it. He put a proposal together, took it to the presidency. The rest, they say, is history. At the time he took it to the presidency, Abu Janapa was deputy chief of staff.
I see. A while ago then.
Yes. And, well, now it's a Green Ghana. He's not involved in the implementation and everything. But he had a blueprint to put this together. He's had award ceremonies with Rocky Dawuni and many other people in attendance. So you ask yourself the question. I've been asking. This will be the third edition or maybe the fourth edition. I've asked myself, where are the trees we plant? And that not so long ago, the children at Kanda Estate Cluster of Schools, they left the seedlings there to come and show it on TV before they started making them plant them, and it's painful that
because we spend a lot of money.
We spend a lot of money. In fact, the first year we said we spent 12 million cedis to plant whatever number of trees. I think 5 million trees or so. Subsequently, we reduced the amount of money, but we said we planted more. And I kept asking the question, if we're spending 12 million to plant 5 million trees, why are we spending less to plant even more trees in the subsequent year when conditions of the economy and everything else had changed?
That's right.
Yeah, but it goes back to the conversation that we've had. I mean, I have said that we'll get to a point where it will not rain in Accra, but Accra will be flooded if we don't take care. Because all the green areas, including the Ramsar sites, etc., are being taken over waterways. Let's try and also fetch Titus Glover on the phone line. He's the Greater Accra Regional Minister. Let's fetch him. He's been doing some crisscrossing with the Ramsar sites and all of that. I want to hear from him. But Engineer Muhammad joins us now on the phone line. Engineer, thank you very much for your time. Good morning.
Good morning, Johnny.
Great. Engineer, should we be worried as a people that there's a little rain and then there's big floods that come along with the rains? Should we be worried, Engineer?
Let me say good morning to your cherished listeners and yourself. I like your passion. I like your being.
Thank you, sir.
And that's one of the motivations we know that we are not having our hopes dashed yet. For some of you are so active, just like some of us. Before I say anything, I think you may take a close look at what is happening within our neighborhood. And I think I made a very strong pronouncement. I don't know whether it's on my X. I would like you to have time later. Maybe you can go through.
Right.
At Mahama_Abdullahi.
Right.
In 2019 or 2020, see, I'm tired of some of these things that, in fact, some of my colleagues will ask, are you seeing things that we don't see? Are you a soothsayer? No, I don't. I'm just doing engineering, and I've just backed this with my emotions and passions, factually accurate. I stated that, I mean, you can make this one a very huge discussion this morning. I said we're going to a time where there will not be rains in Accra. We'll not have any rains in Accra, yet Accra will flood. I have been quoted.
I was just saying the same thing right now. Yes, now.
I said that in 2019, 2020. I think I don't know exactly the time, but I think on one of the sisters, the City FM, City TV, I told them that we are getting to a time we will not have water in Accra. There will not be any rainfall. Alajo and his own environs and part of Accra will flood. You know why? Some years back, I read a book by one Professor Mamu, and he said in the 70s, when it rains around Ebri and its environs, when it rains around Ejimenti, Rekuso, Ayimensa, Peduase, Lord, Kitase area, it takes 72 hours average for the runoff to get to Accra. 72, that's 3 days. So you are adequately informed and prepared. In this current day, after 40 years, 35, 40 years, it takes just about 30 minutes. And the flood water inundate the capital. So it means that once the vegetation is almost taken away, which was supposed to retard the flow, the speed of the water passing down. That is what is happening in Accra. And I always say one thing, that aside the fact that Accra is a very low-lying area, it's like a receptor area. Have you seen what is metamorphosing on the Ayimensa, Oyarifa, Brekusu, Abokobi mountains? How many of us, you and I, can pull out $300,000 to buy a piece of land, let alone start a construction? So if you put your eye at the top there, if you gaze at the top there when you are driving to Ayimensa, or those who go and climb the mountain, you look at what is happening at the top there.
Yeah. Rapid development is happening.
It is rapid. I did the construction of that road from Adent Pantan Junction, Ayimensa, Oyarifa, Ayimensa, to Peduase, to Kitase, to Ebri, to Asheriase, all the way to Mansaran, about from 2004 to 2006, 2008 January. In fact, when we were doing that road construction, I was part of the consultant at the time. We were even having difficulty to have houses to even to even rest in the afternoon, because the Oyarifa area was fairly green.
Right.
That was in 2004. 2002. So we finished the work at about 29th January 2008 was the last day but I actually picked my bag from the site. 2008. That time, that place was fairly green. And I look at it and I cringe because I was there. Struggling even to have houses where I can even go for lunch. Maybe you're going to get some good lunch when you're doing your construction during the afternoon.
Right.
And so when I see what is happening, don't we have any law that protects our mountains in this country?
You know, engineer, I think 2 days ago I went onto the mountains. I went towards Koforidua. On my return, that was where what you're talking about, clicked me, because 2-3 years ago, my senior colleague and I, Bright Nananfo, had taken a trip there towards Latte. Yeah. And we had seen, so this is not the main hill where I see somebody has dangerously positioned the building atop the rock. Yeah. But this is the point just around Ayimensa, and before you get onto the main Ebri place, it's on the left.
Yes.
The rapid development that is happening there. We had seen then 2-3 years ago, seen just about 1 or 2 trucks trying to go up there, that kind of thing. Now it's a whole estate on top of the hill. And what ran through my mind 2 days ago when I was descending the hill was that could we be having another Kaswa on our minds where the main road now becomes flooded each time it rains? Are we looking at that?
Okay, so I'm happy you have just raised it. And I want to leave another mind-boggling statement that will at least prick people's mind, and those who matter or should act. When we're doing the road construction, let me just be specific with Ayimensa. It's a 4-kilometer stretch. Now, because we want to widen the road, we blasted what we call control split blasting.
Okay.
So we blasted the rock so that we can have a controlled way of having what we call berms. You can see that there are some steps on the mountain.
That's right.
So you control a step, so that even when there's a rolling rock coming, it will fall on the first landing, fall on the second landing. So it takes a longer time. And now we widen the road. So obviously, when you do a blasting of any sort of a mountain, you fracture the rock. Means that the rock is not in that unique, so we go on down. It's not undisturbed, but rather a disturbed sample. So you need to protect it. And so in our writings, we wrote that the place should be protected with either greening and doing the concrete and doing the gratting or whatever has been supposed to be done. But they have done some way. A lot of them have been done in the initial preventions. Now the most scary one is that when you are climbing the mountain, in fact, those who have been going for their work, please. When you are going this Saturday, God willing, look on the right-hand side, the valley. The valley was properly designed with the gravel that we blasted on the left-hand side to protect the road. I've seen massive construction of warehouses and estates closer to the road by about 15 meters or less. It means that the slope that was designed to protect the road, apart from the fact that we're going to have mudslide, the left-hand side caving onto the road, the right-hand side, when you are climbing the previous lodge, when that side collapses, we are truncated, having access to the top, and that will take months. And so I speak about this, the only place I can do, I'm just an advocate. When I get the opportunity to speak to you people on radio, I do my presentations, I put something on my Facebook, I do something on my Twitter, I am done. But what is scary is that on the right-hand side, the houses have approached very close, at close proximity to the road. And that is more scarier than the mountain even collapsing or part of the mountain falling on the road. The only danger is that when it is falling, there are some vehicles there, it will fall on the road. But the right-hand side, when we are cut off, that's a major thing. And you see, the difference between Ayimensa and then Weja, which are all on my stream, is that we're having a weathered rock. It's not like when we're doing the Suhum Road or the Sound Bypass, where we cut across a rock, a mountain, and then put the road at Sechikrom towards Suhum. That is an igneous rock that when you even cut it, it can stand 90 degrees without any danger. But we are dealing with a weathered sedimentary rock at Ayimensa and a finite material at Weja. So over the past 9 to 10 years, I've sustained one campaign to the extent that I'm sure that Sisters, your producer, will tell you that, well, if I want to call you, say, Mama, I know you are tired, but you have to continue. I remember one day, one of your FM station owners in Accra just told the I want to just give it. I said, no, if you give up, even with the sustained discussion, we are still doing the mess. How much more if you become quiet? Because you are the technocrat who are so vested in some of these areas. So you see, what is happening at the top there? I said that no matter how many space or size of culverts or storm drains that will be constructed in Accra, the volume of water keeps on increasing because of global warming. It's not the fault of anybody, but I'm talking about the volume of water that we receive now. Now it's extreme flood or extreme drought. One other thing that I experienced when I was constructing the stadium at Abokobi for the Accra Lions.
Right.
When you are from Abokobi police station coming towards Oyarefa, there is this high swampy area that brings the water from the top there, and it goes through Abokobi, through Pantan Hospital, the back there, and it connects through Kwabenya, through to Dome, and then comes through Abofu, and then connect to Alajo, to the Odo. To my surprise, just in 2019, I was doing the construction of the stadium. I finished in 2022. I never saw any feeling of that area. What I saw last month, I was scared to the bone marrow. That the whole swampy water, identified water source, in fact, a big tunnel, has been filled.
Yeah. And
people have put their buildings on it. That means that you can be in Accra, you are doing all the nice talks. I think if we don't go just about 10, 15, 20 kilometers behind us to address what is happening upstream, no matter the size of culvert we do in Accra, the designs we are doing in Accra, the flash will just be with like a speed of light to Accra. And that is one of the areas that we have to tackle. And I've said this thing over and over and over. What is happening at Abokobi now is going to contribute significantly, negatively, what is happening at Okunglu, what is happening at Shia. Because the water would have been, would have taken so much hours to fill those capacity of the channels before they flow what we call velocity discharge area. So the higher your area, the less the discharge towards Accra. It means that when your area is so wide, the water doesn't flash with the speed. Rather, it flows gentle as it meanders through the stream path and then get to the final destination. But now when you are restricted, the water would flash with the speed. And that's why it will take any other thing that it finds on this way, one is coming to the final destination, which is the Odo, and then to the sea. That is exactly what is happening. And I'm not so surprised what I see at Okunglu, what I see on the N1, what I see at Fiashi. And I'm not saying, I don't want anybody to say that the road has not been constructed properly. You see, when you have a road construction, apart from the fact that a road is functioning well, let's say 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, up to like 8 years or 10 years, and suddenly, within 2 years, the road begins to flood, beyond imagination. You have to just say what is happening in the immediate environs that is necessitating or warranting this to happen. Or 2 houses, 3 houses, 1 warehouse with a certain wide area had been constructed sitting on a river channel. And that suddenly, the roads begin to flood. And people may just be addressing the issue with the road as a source of the problem. No. And that goes to the assembly. You see, when the laws have been well articulated that in the event when even a structure ought to be sited on a river, a stream or whatever, the provider, in this case, the developer has to provide adequate flood control measures. They are all stated in the Act. In fact, I want to look at the Land Use and Special Planning Act of 2016 at 925. Just want to paraphrase one of the clauses. That's clause 121. It says that the officer may, without notification to the developer, carry out instant alteration, prohibition, abatement, or demolition of a structure when that structure constitutes a nuisance to the environment or the public right of space. Now, I want to ask you, Johnny.
Yes.
Tell me 5 houses in Accra that we have all identified that are sitting in waterways. That we have used this clause in the 2016 Land Use and Special Planning Act to carry out an instant prohibition, alteration, abatement, or demolition of that structure? Tell me one.
Because
we have identified a lot of houses.
Right.
We have identified a lot of filling stations. We have identified a lot of warehouses, including warehouses that are ironically selling building products, building materials, sitting on a waterway which is causing houses to be demolished or to be flooded. Yet that structure is selling material for you and I to go and buy to do our construction or to do our remedial work. Is that fair?
Well, the big people who are supposed to be cracking the whip, if you go behind the ownership of these buildings that you talk about situated in waterways, you will find them in there some way, somehow, either directly or indirectly. You find them in there some way, somehow. You find the political class in there some way, somehow. You find law enforcement officers in there some way, somehow. So the conundrum is clear, but who to bail the cat is the problem.
I have stated and I've told and I've advised my mates, my classmates, my schoolmates, my professional mates who are working in the field of engineering, that when you are at an assembly, in fact, what you just said is right. It has happened before. A colleague of mine, a junior colleague of mine, who wanted to stand and do the right thing. He told me that, Abdul, I'm going to be transferred because I've had my own banter with the MCE. I think 9 months after we stated that, the gentleman was transferred to Accra. And Johnny, it happens every day. The big man will come and speak nicely on the TV or radio. This is not fair. We are going to make sure that I'm going to work with my assembly engineers or the works department to do the right thing. The only advice I can give to my engineers is that find ways and means to get media friends. When you feel like it's beyond you, you feel like you don't want to show your face. Some of us, we have gone beyond that. We know the risks that are with us.
Of course.
I have gone beyond. That is my 13th or 14th year on championing the same thing, and I've had my fair share of threats.
Oh, you will. Of course, you will.
Fair share. And that's why I attack my emotions to you when I see you talk like that on radio and TV. Fair share. Some of us have actually stood to be counted, and we'll go down one day to be counted that these people stood and were counted positively. Because if you go to my media, my portal, you look at it. I'm not there to give any stamp or approval of anything that goes wrong. I will speak about it and take the risk. That is it. So I want my colleagues at the assemblies to have some media friends. Stay back. When you feel like you can fight it, get some media people to do those revelations so that we can, one way or the other, help the country.
Engineer Mahama, tell me about this whole Kaswa stretch, that highway.
Yeah.
Each time it rains, it's a big problem. You know, we have silt on the road. We come and scoop it and take it away. We don't know where we take it. People's buildings are sitting atop the hill. People can't go home. They're stuck in traffic forever. And those who live around those places always have their hearts in their mouths when it rains. What really is the problem there that you know?
My mom stays in Kaswa. I put up a structure for my mother in 2014 in Kaswa. Obviously, I'm going to relocate here very soon.
Right.
I'm happy that you have one fantastic broadcast journalist in the person of Komladum.
Right.
At 3 FM, 3 TV3. In fact, let him just give you a documentary that he carried when he was in the previous other station. Time Ticking Bomb. Just go on YouTube. Just type Time Ticking Bomb on the wager. And I was virtually with him, and then the seismologist and one other NADMO officer who, in fact, had a very good documentary that in fact epitomizes everything that is happening at the Wager enclave now. It's called Time Ticking Bomb, and I'm sure if you could have some part of your TV showing the documentary, I'm sure you can have that documentary aired again. And this is something that we have stated in the documentary, that what we've seen, the initial winning of the sand on the top of the Wager enclave was part of the construction of the Kaswa road itself. Now, the contractor who wind material from that side to do the construction. He was not the first to have started using it because there were other contractors who were sourcing material from the escarpment to be used for the road. Now, when that was done, the assembly continued. And the assembly can never take themselves out of the blame because they have their levy. I mean, they are facing people along the road who are like the task force, that every truck that goes to load the material, when you get to the junction, before you exit the place to the road, you pay a certain toll, whatever it is, to the assembly. So this has happened across the years. Now, what I see on the mountain is that, like I stated in all of my reports, some of my interviews, is that we're going to experience what happened in Sierra Leone about 4 years ago, where the people woke up the next morning and there was a massive mudslide that killed, I think, about 400 people overnight. If we don't take care, we experience that in the middle of the night, and then the flood water inundates the saturated material. Those immediate buildings underneath will be covered with the mud. And I stated that we are also getting to a stage where we will not only be fortunate to have only the southbound stretch of the road being covered by mud, but we'll have a total blockage of both Accra bound and then the Kaswa bound. The only route that we are going to use is to go through Amasaman and use that Trade Junction Road to the back of Kaswa. And that is where we are getting to. Fortunately, I saw last week that the Minister for Roads and Highways visited the site, and I saw some construction which has commenced on some storm drains, I think, under the escarpment, so that when the floodwaters come, it may serve two purposes. One of them may be to intercept the mud temporarily, and then we will have running water moving across the road, which is satisfactory anyway. And then constant desilting will be done anytime we are out of the rains. But the issue is that for us to be able to holistically address the issue, the solution, one of them, is in the documentary. The second one that those who are listening should know is that there are fractures on the mountain because of the construction activity, the earth-moving equipment, the excavators, the bulldozers, the payloaders that have been used for the winning of the sun at the top there. We need to take more than millions of cubic of material, which is loose on the surface there, to be out of the place, and then we now re-engineer the whole place by grouting, by grassing, by concreting, and by netting. The netting is just like the similar one that was trying to be used at the Ayimensah Strait. You cage the net in a tool, and it is straight to the top, and it's cased at the top as well. And then you splash concrete, or you do what we call like this vegetation by this horticulturists to hold the loose end of the material so that we don't get them coming down. Right. Because now the vegetation has actually grown to actually become like what we have around this beach area. We have this like the mangroves to hold the earth so that will be a good protection for the place. But before government does that, unfortunately for the government, once again, the assemblies have given approval to some houses which are situated in those areas. And before government can relocate those people from there, once they have actually ticked all the boxes in terms of issuance, requesting for a permit, and being issued with a permit, you would have to duly compensate those people.
Engineer, these things you talk about, your colleagues at the various assemblies and at all these other important places, don't they know?
It's not everything that you will know. Others will know to an extent. Others may not know to an extent. You see, that is why I've said that if you look at most of the assemblies you have in Ghana, okay, in fact, initially they were calling the officers at the assembly the officer at the district engineer, and I said it's not. They are not. Most of them are not engineers. So later they circumvented the name to be works head. Means that a QS or a building technologist who went to school to do BT or building construction student. I'm not calling myself an engineer. There is an engineer, and there's a building technologist, or a surveyor, or what do you call it, geomatics engineer. And so, in assemblies where we don't have, in fact, there are very few assemblies in Ghana who have civil engineers as part of the assembly.
Right.
And so we have building technologies and most of the assemblies. And so even in issuance of permits to construction, I stated time with that number that when it goes beyond the works head approving of a permit, that's why you have what we call the co-opted members. You have to co-opt a consortium to come and vet your documents for you and issue certification before you can give an approval to any construction to be done in an area. Some local assemblies also do not even have the physical planning officers. So if you don't have a physical planning officer, how do you even do what we call the zoning of the area? And there are some funny behaviors I've seen across some of the sections of the engineers and the assemblies, where a physical planning officer and just go to an area and just do something we call like a localized zoning.
Right.
You don't go and zone a 1 or 2 plots to name it a mini industrial hub. Because if I come to a very big land and that area has been identified or zoned as residential area, and people go beyond like you said, the big men, and then you see 2-3 factories sitting in the residential hub. You should go and find out for yourself what was the zoning status of that area that allowed a structure of that magnitude to be situated in an industrial, what do you call it, a purely residential area. And if you remember what happened some time back around Satellite on the Ansawam stretch, where there was this Chinese tomato factory.
Yes.
That it was sustained, and Alaska was part of those who actually sustained the campaign. It took like 3 years before the factory was relocated to Tichamante on the Suhum stretch of the road, where it's a mini industrial area. But can you imagine that the structure of that magazine was situated in a purely residential area, polluting people's kids? And before we wake up in the morning, their leaves are blackened with some powdered smoke from those factories. And that's where we are. Exactly.
So now you tell me, every time the rains are about to come and heavily so, we are told that, we need X amount of money to desilt the Odo and other major drains so that water can flow. But we keep doing that every year, and the problem seems to be worsening. Are we throwing money away by doing those activities?
So I'll go back and say that I said in 2019 that we are sinking money down the drain. That day, I had my fair share of your. I mean, you know the reaction that will come when you make that.
I know, right? Statement. I know.
And then I think 6 months after I made that statement, engineer-wise, Ametepe, the consultant.
Right, for Ghana Meteo. He used to be with Ghana Meteo, right?
Thank you.
And then he went to hydraulics, right?
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. That man came on air. In fact, the day the president visited the Odo, and the man said we need about 6 to 8 months to be able to successfully dredge the Odo. And the city referred to my statement 6 months back that received a bashing of its own side because I made that statement and people thought that, hey, this cannot be coming from you. What do you mean by we are sinking money in the drain and we need about 270 days to be able to distill the Odo? You see, the issue is that I always say the Odo, the polythene bags is not an issue at the Odo. The polythene that you see floating on the surface of the water, even though they block some mini culverts and U-drains of 600 diameter pipes, maybe 1.2 diameter pipe or 900 diameter pipe, which are all, emptying to the Odo. But when you get to the Odo proper, the silt, the polythene bags, and those floating objects, they constitute less than 5% of the siltation on the Odo. Now, when I stated that over 85% of what is making the Odo not to function is sand. Where is the sand coming from? When you just go past Abofu, the media center. When you go through the new plant area to Dome, and you move on the way to Brekusu, there are massive construction uphill on the Brekusu stretch. And we have not lined our concrete drains from just around Abofu all the way to Domain, through Kwabenya, through all the way to Brekusu area.
Right.
The area have not been lined with any concrete material. So we keep on desilting the Odo. Just 3, 4, 5 rains. The silt from the the Brekusu stretch that goes through the GBT Tower area, that comes through Kwabenya, Atomic, that comes through the Domain, that empties at the new plan, and they get to the Abofu Strait, all come to the Odo. It means that when the water is coming with that speed, it carries everything along its path. But when the water suddenly stops as it's slowing down to emptying to the sea, then you have what we call high deposition of silt.
Right.
Because at that time, the water is not running with that speed, so it doesn't carry anything. Now, now you have intense deposition. So if we not go backwards, just around Abofu, just around the new plan, just around the domain, to start to line the storm drains there by placing concrete there. I'm sure it might be part of the Garrett project.
Okay.
Otherwise, if we don't do that, we will keep on deflating the Odo. Just half a season, the Odo will be silted. So in sinking the money there, we rather have to be doing that routinely, and then we'll reverse the money towards extending the concrete lines that will go backwards from the Abofu Stretch to the new plan, ABC, to Domain, to Kwabenya area, then to the Brekusu area. And then we have to also make sure that we minimize, or we have extensive control of the estates that are the estates that are happening around the enclave from Ajimenti, Brekusu area that actually have their
all those places, right,
feeding to Accra. If we're able to grasp those areas and do some of the concrete in those areas, we are going to have less, silt. Even though the water will not be so drastically reduced, but you're going to have less silt in the Odo. That means
let's talk about the assemblies and what role they can play, across the capital and many other parts, not just Accra, but if you go to Takrady, you seem to have a similar situation. They go to Cape Coast and many other places. What can the assemblies do? Can they, for example, say that you bring your plan to us, have a certain percentage or portion of your land reserved for greening? Because what we see now is that everybody is either putting tiles or pavement block or glass, or people don't want to plant trees, they don't want to have lawns anymore, they only want to build, and it's climbing up and everywhere is hot and air conditioned and all of that. Can the assemblies, for example, decide that, look, as for this assembly, if you bring us a plan and you have maybe a 70 by 100, you dedicate at least some 10% of the land or 5% of the land for greenery. Can it be done?
This question, in fact, has been anticipated by the framers of the Act. We have the Land Use and Special Planning
The LUSPA Act.
Yes, and then we have the one we call the National Building. The National Building Regulation has not been changed and amended. That's the Building Regulation 2022 LI 2465. It's so beautiful. I mean, with some few exceptions, when you have that, the assembly, and this is a law that the assembly is supposed to use, so they don't even have to go and start to tell that, as for this assembly, we are going to do this. It is clearly stated in all the acts and then the permit codes that if you have X quantity, let's say size of a land to put up a structure, even the first thing is that from the wall of your building, you are supposed to offset 3 meters from the wall at all the corners. That means that you have already reserved an area at the back of the building. Okay? And secondly, you are supposed to do X amount of concrete or whatever, impervious material or semi-pervious material or pervious material. It is stated. So it's just that we need to act in accordance with the acts that we have been given as assembly engineers to use in issuing the permit. It's when they issue the permit, they always say that they don't have the logistics to move ahead and doing monitoring. That's the excuse we've been giving all the time. Because if they're able to, somebody present a building plan, and with all the green aspects well captured on the plan, you obviously would go to the site, and then after that you give a permit to the person. But the law says that when the person is constructing the facility, you are supposed to periodically go to the place to check whether the person is constructing the structure in conformity with what you have been given. And this must be like, see, when I remember I was doing a factory for a construction for Beaumont. It's a factory around Blue Skies. Now, when the client came, let's say he's a novice. I mean, the person doesn't understand, this kind of environmental, ecological systems as part of the act. He approaches you. The first question I asked was that, you want me to concrete the whole place for you? No, right? But what is the pattern of flow daily on your side?
Right.
Said, okay, I bring mangoes from Somania to the place to come and do my factory, my drinks. I said, okay,
Right.
let me just do the driveway, restrict the driveway to be concrete or pavement blocks.
Right.
So we did the pavement blocks, and we green the whole area. Sometimes it comes with experience as well, and there's a passion to help to salvage what is left. When you go to Cote d'Ivoire, this is our neighbor. Their law says that even if you want to cut a tree, if you want to fall a tree from your house, let's say Johnny, me and you we are just sharing a wall,
Right.
and we have two trees in our house that we want to just cut because of maybe a certain reason. You have to justify to the assembly.
Well, but in our bylaws in the assembly, I know that the AMA bylaw, for example, if you want to cut a tree, you have to go to them. NADMO have to come and do an assessment. All of that. It's there in the bylaw. So I'm wondering
I'm saying a country who has a similar law is acting by the law.
And ours, we have decided to do one change.
Thank you. So I think that some of this education helps listeners to be informed. So I see, when you just see somebody cutting a tree from his compound, it doesn't mean that, you see, the next person who cut a tree from his compound is already getting your roof exposed. Like what happened yesterday at the Nungwa, where a whole roof of a building came onto two vehicles on the street.
Right.
In fact, the roof together with the trusses, that's the metal, the steel trusses, lifted from a hole. It's like about 40 meters long. That is quite
that's quite a size, yeah.
Onto the ground. As a result, what has been the initial investigation by the assembly? Has it even caused a panic or media? National attention. I stated last year, January, that we are having a lot of storage buildings standing by the grace of God in Accra. Just as after that, I think after 2 months, we had 6 buildings collapsing in Accra and then one at the UDS. If you remember.
Yes, I remember
So
very
Medina had about 2 or 3 shares, a share of their collapse. What has been the outcome of the findings of those buildings that collapsed? So how would that be deterrent enough to me, a professional engineer, if I decide to have try to exhibit traits of corrupt practices? What would that be a deterrent factor to me that my colleague did a similar thing that landed him in prison? That was publicized after the person was sentenced or fined massively. If those things have been hidden, you are just motivating the rest of the quack engineers and the quack technocrats to continue to do the same thing, because 6 buildings cannot collapse in a country and it doesn't generate a national discourse that will be sustained and we police through, get those people to go through the procedure, whether through the Ghana of Engineering, whether through the LUPSA agency, be able to come up with the findings that X and B where
the causes they will not get anywhere. Engineer, finally, before you go, I find this quite interesting though, that and I'll ask you this question. In the Gomoa East district of the Republic of Ghana, that will be the domain where the the Kaswa and all those places fall. There's a gentleman called Hackman. He is the operations director for NAC Fairmont. They are in charge of some construction work on the street.
Yeah.
And then he is also the district NADMO director or coordinator. So he's a director of operations of a private firm that is supposed to be constructing something around the place to mitigate the effects of what the people have. And then he's also the NADMO director. Do you sense conflict of interest, and how does that pan out in terms of helping to solve all the issues that you have explained and told us about?
If I'm the one who works at the assembly or the NADMO, and maybe I had my private company before, assuming that office. Maybe one of the things, well, I'm not saying maybe, I want to be very specific. If maybe the conflict of interest will come in when, you are the person who's supposed to oversee to houses and other things being constructed in accordance with the act or the bylaws of the assembly, right? And then you are the same person working in the private things. So you see there, before the permits are issued at the assembly, the reason why it will not be so much of a conflict is that we have the works head, we have the physical planning officer, we have the planning officer, we have two co-opted members of the assembly, that's assemblymen, we have the NADMO officer, we have the fire service officer, we have the EPA director of the district. Mm-hmm. We have, that's the EPA, NADMO, fire service, works head, two co-opted members, and then it's chaired by the MC or the DC.
Right.
So these people are the embodiment that issues a permit. So if the permit is done in accordance to the bylaws or the act, I don't think it will be a problem so much, so to speak, because possibly he's been doing his construction before this appointment came in. Either he stays out and lets the other partners or the engineers do this execution. But once he's conforming to the laws, I'm not sure that, to me, if it's done right, it is going to be a problem, because he might be part of the team that issued the permit. But if there was any objection at the permit level and it was actually overlooked, then it becomes a problem. Because he can tick all the boxes during the time of the permit. I can be at the assembly like yourself. Mm-hmm. Let's say we are working at the assembly, and I'm supposed to put up my personal building or my mother's building or my colleague's building or my sister's building within the same assembly vicinity or the attachment area of that particular assembly. It doesn't mean that you cannot do it, but you have to just follow the right thing and do the application. In fact, I'm putting up 3 structures within the Nsawam enclave, personal houses. Mm-hmm. What I did was that even though the engineer at the assembly is my classmate, Johnny, it will interest you to know that I went through almost 7 months of getting my barcode, my the land search report, and that's what actually hindered me from. Not that there was even cash issue, but because I just wanted to, so that the person speaking on air had to be seen to be doing the right thing. So for 7 months, I actually suspended everything on my 3 sites, and then went through the newly amended plan that says that you have to get your barcode supported with your search report before the assembly will now issue with the permit. I never started any of my construction. And so we speak with principle and we act with the principle.
Engineer Abdullahi Mahama is a civil engineer, a friend here on the network. Thank you very much indeed for speaking to us. We're grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. And all of what the engineer said is captured by Asha in this song.
One day the river will overflow.